Okay, hello everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So first of all, before I start, I would like to thank the organizing team for their tremendous work they've put into this conference. I'm thrilled to be part of this. Thank you very much. And today I would like to talk about the new paradigm of paradox and the paradox of secure networks, as well as the networked mindset and the limitations of linear thinking that we've been observing over the past years. So for centuries, linear thinking and the relationship between causes and effects has been dominating our mindsets. I'm thinking about all aspects of our lives. I'm thinking about the business sphere, about policy making, about academia, and so on. So if I have an apple and I let it falls down. There's a cause and effect. If supply increases, demand will decrease in an economy, and if I increase the risk rate, my return rate will increase as well. And if I introduce a better product to the market, of course, if it's objectively and innovatively better, people will use it. And if these questions cannot be answered, we still have statistical tools, we have multiple regression models, you know. There shouldn't be a problem to give probabilistic answers to these questions. But let me ask you something different. What if we're wrong? What if the human, individual and collective behavior is too complex to be explained by these measures alone? And let me put this into an example. So here you see two actors, red and blue. We can call them Eric and Anna, we can call them Max and Moritz, anything. You see that these two nodes are connected, and let's go through two cases. Let's assume red wants to hire blue for, say, a babysitting task for her nephew, and the second case will be red wants to get blue to adopt a product that was just released on the App Store. Following the linear thinking paradigm, it's quite easy and straightforward to answer these questions, because if Blue's credentials are better, if he's more motivated, and if there's just a personal fit, there will be a babysitting job for Blue. And in the case of product adoption, that's quite straightforward as well, because if the product is better and if it exceeds the benefits of the alternative, you will see that the product will be adopted. However, didn't we just forget something? Something really important that relates to this interaction between red and blue? And the answer is this. They are both embedded in a network with many other actors. And there can be several dynamics that influence this relationship. So in terms of the babysitting job, you can imagine that there is another actor who spreads rumors about Blue's trustworthiness, or that there is a star nanny that comes into town and changes the entire perceptions about the standards that are required from nannies. Or maybe for the product adoption part, it may be that there are network effects in place. And that means that the value that Blue would get out of the product would not only depend on his own preferences in the calculation of benefits and costs, but rather a collection, an equation that would summarize the value that all participants are deriving from this product. Think about Skype, for example. What's the value of Skype if only you are using it? Or what's the value of email for somebody if he is the only person who uses email? Well, I guess you can still use the email to send yourself reminders to buy stamps and envelopes, but there's nothing else you can really use it for. And that means that networks can play a critical part in our life. As a result, you see that this actually follows a natural organization of social interaction, because people communicate and share resources with others through social networks like that. We can analyze these networks to gain insights into the deep mechanisms of society, into areas like collective action, product adoption, migration patterns, the adoption of innovation, etc. And in the news, you could follow recent actions in Egypt, in the Middle East, and in Russia, and also the Occupy movement that are prime examples for the dynamics of networks and their influence on individual actors. So let me just give you some examples of how network science is used to drive academic or practical insights. So this is an example of a recommendation network that was constructed on Amazon for books. And you can see that there are semantic communities that the network analysis provides for books. Here's another example of the US blogosphere. You can see that there are some patterns of homophily here and some polarization matters. The dots basically signify blocks, political blocks, and the lines between them, the edges, represent links between blocks. So this, as you can see, has some potential implication for the democratic dialogue in a country and in the internet. And here's a slightly less political example. This is an example of a network of ingredients and flavors based on recipes, which is probably quite interesting for those who like cooking in this area, in this audience. My own recent work focused on Facebook groups and on engagement patterns and social roles that are potentially emerging in these new platforms. On this slide, you can see one of the graphics I've been working with. You can see that there is a dominant link dealer, somebody who distributes a lot of links in the group, surrounded by a fringe of like people whose dominant behavioral patterns indicate the preference for likes rather than commenting, and there are a few discussion people outside. There are also some spammers, some outsiders who didn't get much love in terms of their interactions on the network. And I find this really interesting because you can compare how the personal network varies with the interactional network and vice versa. And what are the implications for you? What are the implications for risk-taking behavior and for safety in your personal management of your networks? We all know that our cognitive abilities are limited, and with the decreasing closeness of different groups of people we interact with, the ability to remember the names of these people also decreases, as an Oxford academic, Dunbar, has pointed out. The optimal number of people who you can actively interact with and really engage is 150, period. That's it. Of course, you can know more people, up to 2,000 peripherally, but they won't be able to give you the same amount of social support that the inner circle would give you. And this has implications for the paradox of networks, as I'd like to call it. Because weak ties are essentially more important for the management of networks than strong ties. You can see a graphic here. A standard network of an individual who would like to go ahead with his life and engage with people. The people in the inner circle, they are clustered. This is a densely knit cluster that provides a lot of stable social support, but also prevents the individual from meeting dissimilar people, because all the people who are surrounding ego are like ego. And this is great for safety, right? Because you can feel comfortable. You feel like in a paradise in your own small world. And indeed, you can compare that to Adam and Eve and say, well, yes, they think they live in paradise, but they only have one apple to share, and they are naked. Which basically means that they don't know what's on the periphery. They don't know what else is available. And they have to live with the limited resources within the cluster. So what this ego can do, in accordance with that, is reach out to weak ties. People at the periphery of the group who would allow the access to new networks, to new clusters of people who may have potentially better ideas or just other ideas, other resources, and who could introduce the ego to other people from their networks. And that's why I think that structural thinking is so important. Because only if you realize what the degree distribution and what the network structure of your friends and the friends of your friends is, only then can you effectively manage your network by maximizing the number of non-redundant ties. And by non-redundant, I mean ties that don't lead to the same clusters, but lead to other clusters. The majority of people indeed sticks to what is known as the inner cluster and what I've just described. They're probably subject to groupthink, they're less innovative, less creative. But entrepreneurs think differently because they think structurally. Only by reaching out to new ties can entrepreneurs, for instance, find new customers, develop products, sell products, and find investors for their products. So here is another example of a network. I believe that the paradox of secure networks is best epitomized in this graphic. Because what ego can do, he can reach out to people outside of his network while strategically also maintaining ties to his core group, to his home base. And that is what basically defeats the common misconception that entrepreneurs have to give up everything, reach out to the world, go into the ocean of the romanticized journey. They don't have to do that. All they have to do is keeping a base in their home cluster where they can get their social support from, and simultaneously reaching out to new cluster for fresh ideas through their weak ties. So in effect, what you have to do is you have to move to the periphery of your own network, become a broker, and try to connect people from different clusters. That way you can become a tertius gaudens, the third who benefits. So somebody who connects people and can capitalize on that. What is the lesson from these network observations? I believe there are three things that are worth noticing. The first thing is that not enough people are considering networks in their decision. They rely on unitary, linear thinking, which can lead them to wrong conclusions. And that's why the first thing is to do, and that's probably also the easiest thing to do, is to think about your own structure and try to recognize the structural positions of your friends in your decisions. The second thing, and that's probably the difficult thing, the more difficult thing to do, is to try to incorporate these decisions in your response to the network. So managing your network more efficiently would be one thing. But then the most difficult thing is probably to actually go out, seize the new opportunities while considering the risks, and strategically improve your network by having a core group that supports you, that provides bonding social capital, and then also reaching out to bridging social capital. That is what I would term the paradox of secure networks. They can be secure, but they can also provide tremendous opportunities for entrepreneurial endeavors. So in this sense, I would like to encourage you all to embark on this journey into the complexities of the world, of the new social interactions, while thinking strategically and thinking structurally about your decisions, because that is the only way how you can navigate through the complexities of the social world rendered by the internet, and also shape these complexities in your favor. Thank you.